Hey there, welcome back to this week's episode of the C-Town Podcast, where Seattle business owners, entrepreneurs, and community leaders are invited on to share their stories with us. I'm your host, Christian Harris. This week's episode of the C-Town Podcast is brought to you by C-Town Real Estate. Their mission to make a difference extends beyond just their unique and unconventional approach with their clients and their agents. They partner with the community to give back a percentage of the proceeds from each home sale to a local nonprofit of their client's choice. Visit ctown.com, sea-town.com, and experience the difference with C-Town Real Estate today. Thanks for tuning in to the C-Town Podcast. This week's episode is with Paula Boggs. She is a former top executive turned band leader, philanthropist, and public speaker, amongst her many other roles. So you're a formerly top lawyer at Starbucks and a vice president at Dell, as well as an Army officer, federal prosecutor, and was appointed to the President's Committee to the Arts and Humanities during the Obama administration. And for the past 10 years, you've been the frontrunner of the Paula Boggs Band, where you've released 3 albums, toured nationally, and continue to support causes important to yourself through involvement with advisory boards and volunteering with political campaigns. Wow,
that's a mouthful, right?
That is a lot. Maybe just take us through a little bit. What brought you from being a lawyer at Starbucks and VP at Dell to, front running your own band and doing what you do now?
Yeah, Christian. And first of all, happy to be here. I'm really excited to be here. I was a musician starting at, really age 6. Okay. I came from one of those families where my parents said, each kid had to learn an instrument, and I started with piano, didn't like it, ultimately got to guitar, loved it, fell in love, and ultimately started writing music. And I would say within a year of learning how to play guitar around age 10, I started also to write music. And, and that was a very central part of who I was going through high school, a little less so in college, a little less so in graduate school. And by my late 20s, early 30s, I had pretty much put music in a box as I climbed the law and corporate, ladder. Yeah. So, I thought that was then, this is now sort of thing. But about 13 years ago, my sister-in-law died in a car crash, and it was just the most traumatic thing for me. And so my spouse urged me to take my guitar out as a way to grieve, which I did. And once I did, having not touched it for 15 years, really, it started something in me that now leads to being, a member of Paula Boggs Band and traveling all over the country and performing and in Canada. Okay. So that's the sort of the Reader's Digest of the journey. And so when my sister-in-law died, I was Starbucks top lawyer, and the last thing on my mind was that in a relatively short period of time, I would be leaving Starbucks and pursuing music, pretty much full time. But one of the gifts Starbucks gave me was being in an environment where there were a lot of people who were attached to music some way. Either they were musicians themselves or they knew a lot about music. So as I was going through this personal journey of rediscovering my passion for music, I was also working at a place where there was a lot of support for that journey, including from my boss. And so it didn't happen overnight, but over a period of 5 years, it very much happened. that I came to a point in my life story where I knew I'd done everything at Starbucks I wanted to do, and then some. Meanwhile, there was this other thing I needed to do.
Sure.
And while I was still young enough to do it, and I had been blessed enough to be reasonably enough financially secure to do it, I decided to do it.
Yeah, just went for it. That's awesome.
I just went for it.
Yeah, that's great. So, I mean, your journey kind of starts, as far as notability, so to speak, being one of Starbucks' top lawyers. Why law? What got you into wanting to be a lawyer in the first place?
Well, it's not, and I know Christian, you're a veteran also, and I would love to say about law that it was this passionate thing that I first felt within me as a child,
sure.
And I got to the point, but that's not how it went down at all. In fact, it was a choice of convenience and expedience. And what do I mean by that? So I'd gotten an Army scholarship, ROTC, that was paying my way for college. Between my junior and senior year of college, I went to Airborne school, and then immediately after that, I went to this training camp for cadets that gets them prepared to be officers in the U.S. Army. So for 9 weeks, someone had told me, when to get up, when to go to bed, what to eat, how to eat it, what to wear, how to wear it. And so when I got back to my civilian college, my senior year, I realized I couldn't think on my own. I couldn't even make decisions around what am I going to wear today. And so I kind of freaked out and said, "Whoa, I don't think I'm ready for active duty Army." So, but I've got this commitment hanging over my head. What can I do? Oh, well, I can delay it by continuing my education. And so there were two kind of flavors of delay. I can appreciate that. Yeah, I could get a graduate degree or I could get a law degree, and the exams for law school, the LSATs, came first. And my strategy was, if I do well on the LSATs, I'm going to go to law school because it's 3 years instead of 2. And I'll come in as a lawyer as opposed to, I don't know, air defense, artillery, or something. So that's how it happened. So the joke was, 25, almost 30 years later, I was still doing something that started as sort of a scheme.
That is pretty funny. Yeah, it's not. So at what point were you VP at Dell? Was that kind of in the midst of it, or was that after Starbucks? Yeah,
so Starbucks came after Dell. I actually spent the first 10 years of my career in public service, first as an Army officer, and then as a federal prosecutor. And so after that, I went to a local law firm for a couple years and realized that wasn't really it for me, that I needed to be in an environment where there was a larger sense of team, where there was, I'm a very mission-oriented person, and needed to be in a situation where whatever I was working for was bigger than me. And so that led to looking at companies whose values aligned with mine. And through a headhunter, I learned about the opportunity at Dell. And so I left Seattle. My spouse and I, we weren't married at the time, left Seattle, moved to Austin, and lived there 5 years, and then came back to Seattle for the Starbucks opportunity.
Gotcha. How do you like your time in Texas?
We really liked Austin.
Yeah, Austin's a pretty cool place.
It was. I had never lived in Texas before. I had a lot of preconceptions around what Texas was. And some of those bore out, but many of them did not. Yeah. And I really cherish that 5-year period. I got to work at Dell.
Sure, that's great. So I mean that's pretty exciting. It's pretty funny. After 25, 30 years of kind of playing out the scheme that started. As,
yes.
Trying not to get stuck with a crummy duty in the Army, you can just rediscover this passion for music.
Yes.
Fortunately, you had people to cultivate that, in your life and at Starbucks, and then you went for it and you launched. So tell us kind of how that happened. You formed the Paula Boggs band. I assume you already had friendships with other musicians that kind of flushed out that group.
Sure. So the band is part of a corporate entity called Boggs Media LLC. And what is that? So Boggs Media LLC, and I'll call it Boggs Media LLC 1.0 because there's going to be a 2.0 at some point. Okay. But the 1.0 really is a corporate sort of vessel for the band. I do a fair amount of public speaking. It houses all of the intellectual property I own. I have 30 plus copyrights from songs I've written, trademarks and that sort of thing. I'm on the board of Avid Technology, which is a media editing company across music, film, and broadcasting. So even podcasts, editing tools they make. Okay. And it is also the source for supporting other artists through GoFundMe and other activities like that. So that's what Boggs Media is, my small business right now. The only employee is me. Everybody else is an independent contractor, be it a band member or my assistant. But I aspire to a time when Boggs Media will be 2.0. Sure. And really that is a post Paula Boggs band life for Boggs Media LLC, in which I will continue to write music. I aspire to write music with others that other people perform. I hope to someday write a book. So, those creative activities, I write articles now, writing more of them. And 2.0 may provide an opportunity for a more traditional business in the music entertainment space, such as a School of Rock franchise or a music studio or a music venue or something like that. So that's later though, because so long as Paula Boggs Band continues to grow, get more fans, is on a positive trajectory, there's really no reason to ignite a 2.0.
Yeah. Okay. So with all of the all the things that you're involved in, what would you say you spend most of your time on? Kind of the band right now? Or?
Yes.
Okay.
Very much so. In fact, we have a vocal rehearsal here in West Seattle later today.
Okay, great. Glad that lined up with the recording of this.
Absolutely.
Yeah. What is your like kind of schedule? Do you guys do you kind of alternate between recording for like albums and then touring, or what's kind of that rhythm look like with the band right now?
Absolutely. So the band has existed 11 years now, and within that time we've produced 3 studio albums and a live EP.
Okay.
We've also toured extensively, particularly in the past 3 years. In the past 3 years, I mean, there are bands who've done more than this, but we've done about 200 shows over the past 3 years in almost every region of the United States. The only region we really haven't cracked yet, and we will in June for the first time, is that Rocky Mountain region and those states that are south of that.
Okay.
But we've played the South, the Midwest, the Northeast, up and down the West Coast, British Columbia.
Okay.
And as we do this, we continue to gain fans and corporate support. So
Sure.
Right now we have 2 corporate sponsors, Breedlove Guitars, which is a Northwest guitar manufacturer. They're out of Bend, Oregon, and actually the other is also a Pacific Northwest company. Is Radial Engineering, and they make the direct input boxes,
DI boxes.
Yeah, exactly, and they're based out of British Columbia.
Gotcha.
As those things happen, those sort of markers of we're moving in the right direction.
Sure.
We're playing in bigger venues. We're garnering more corporate support.
Sure.
We're getting on more, almost exclusively for our music, public radio stations. But that's an important vehicle for us to get our music out. Those metrics, as they continue to move in the right direction, are very positive for us.
Where would you say your largest fan base is? It sounds like you've toured all over the country. Is it kind of local because that's kind of where you're based out of, or?
Well, here's the irony, Christian. I think we are more popular in places like LA, Philadelphia, and New York than we are Seattle.
Really?
We have an easier time, filling venues of the same size in those cities than Seattle, and and I'm not quite sure why that is. Sometimes the toughest crowd is the home crowd.
Sure.
I don't know, but we've played Philadelphia, the same venue, World Cafe Live 4 times in Philadelphia, and have been able to attract a great crowd.
Sure.
Every single time.
Okay.
So.
Yeah. It just occurred to me, some of our listeners may not be aware of your band. I mean, what would you, if you had to categorize it, what kind of music would you say it is?
Well, our tagline for it is Seattle brewed soulgrass.
Okay.
And so then the question may be, well, what's soulgrass?
Yeah.
And for us, what that means is a fusion of folk, bluegrass, jazz, a little bit of rock, a little bit of world music, a lot of 3-part harmony. Our instruments are almost exclusively what one would consider roots music instruments. So acoustic guitar, stand-up bass, accordion, banjo. We have drum and percussion, and the guy who plays accordion also plays keys.
Okay, nice. And where would be the best place for someone to check out your music if they wanted to sample it?
Yeah, so we're all over social media. You can check us out at www.paulaboggsband.net. We're on Facebook. We're on Twitter, Instagram. All over social media and
all the socials.
Yeah, and our next Seattle area show will be at Bite of Seattle.
Okay, nice.
In July 21st, which is a Saturday. We're going to be playing from 5 to 5:40.
Okay, very good. Now, I mean, obviously, other than music, what would you say that with the things you're involved in that you're most passionate about? What are you most excited about right now?
We call the band, and I call the music, much of the music we write, music for the soul, but also music that showcases our sort of role as citizen artists. And what do I mean by that? We make music to entertain, but we also make music to hopefully inspire people to feel something, or to think about something in a slightly different way than they might have before they listen to our song. And for example, one of the songs that is most dear to us on our most recent album, Elixir the Soulgrass Sessions, is a song called Benediction. I was inspired to write Benediction following the church murders in Charleston of a few years back. And the song, though, is not a sad song. It hopefully serves to give people hope, despite the awfulness of that event. And for us, perhaps the biggest highlight as a band we've ever had was premiering that song in Charleston last year with the Mother Emanuel AME choir. So this is the choir from the church that was victim to that tragedy. And that kind of sums up what citizen artistry is for us.
That must have been a powerful event.
It was. We were sobbing, actually, at the end of it. We had a wonderful singer who's not a member of the band. He was a guest singer, Michael Wastman, who was on The Voice a few years back. He's a Seattle native. He came to Charleston. He's on the album singing on the song with us, and he came to Charleston with us to premiere it with the choir. And all of us said it. We've never, as musicians, perhaps as humans, felt anything like this before.
Man, it must be pretty cool to be able to be part of experiences like that aren't just entertainment but also community and people focused.
Yes.
Yeah, that's
absolutely.
Awesome. Gotta go back to your transition a little bit. I get kind of a two-part question. What would you say would be the most challenging aspect of you kind of transitioning from the corporate world into kind of fully following your passions with music, and then the most, well, we'll just do that question first.
Yes. And I don't know if there's one thing that is most challenging about this transition. There were a number of things, but I'll pick one.
Okay.
One of the hardest things for me in transitioning from, my last life to this one was I had been in an environment where I could essentially make a lot of other people do a lot of things, and
had influence.
Yeah, I had a lot of influence, and the fruits of one's labor, were such that you got feedback, either positive or negative,
Sure.
Fairly quickly. And for the most part in my career, pretty transparently.
Mm-hmm.
During that period in my career when I was a trial lawyer, it was pretty cut and dry. I mean, you either
Sure.
won a case or you lost a case, or you either settled it or you didn't.
Yeah.
As Starbucks top lawyer, it comes more in, the success or failure of a deal, the quality of the people you hire and are able to mentor and grow, the satisfaction of your clients. But, at the end of the day, and your or at least for me, my monetary compensation was, commiserate with that.
Sure.
So you leave that, and like any entrepreneur, I think there's a lot of white space. Okay,
Yep.
And so your life initially goes from, at least for me, what had been fairly structured to extremely unstructured.
Sure.
Any given day is what you make it.
Sure.
Everything you do has to be, 100% self-motivated. You create the daily calendar,
Sure.
and you really have to develop, or I've had to develop metrics of success. So what is that? What is success in this life chapter for this endeavor? What are those metrics? How do I know that I'm moving a needle? How do I deal with criticism? How do I deal with failure?
Yeah.
And so, how do I deal with failure in an environment where I think I've done everything right? How do I pick myself up? How do all of those things? You go. I went from an environment where the answers to all those questions were pretty cut and dry.
Sure. Provided for you.
Or provided for me, to having to make it all up.
Yeah.
Right. 6 years into that, I now there are certain norms, and how I define success or failure is more routinized, but that was not the case at all 6 years ago.
Okay.
when I left Starbucks.
Yeah. I mean, those are all great questions I think a lot of entrepreneurs and small business owners can relate to as they maybe leave a more structured employment environment and figure it out themselves. Kind of getting back to the second part of the question I asked a little while ago about what was the most difficult aspect of transition from corporate life to the music world. What would you say in that transition was the most unexpected aspect of the journey? Hopefully in a positive way, but what would you say you didn't really see, but you're pleasantly surprised, hopefully?
Yeah, I think I'm gonna surprise you and your listeners.
Okay.
The most surprising and really beautiful part of this journey is what it has meant in the relationship I have with my kid, who is now 15. I became more cool. And it's really interesting the conversations we have about the sort of various ingredients of Boggs Media LLC. She's genuinely interested in them. She likes pretty much every member of the band and has nicknames for them. Yes. And through her eyes, I get to I think be more hip and current about what's going on in the music space and what that age group is responding to. Just the other day, Jada, my kid, said, "This is my favorite song," and it was like a Queen song. Bohemian Rhapsody. Sure. And I'm like, how do you even know?
Right, the song's 40 years old.
Yeah. How do you even know that song, right? And, these kids, they find, so some of the, yes, they listen to, the flavor of the day that's coming out every day. Sure. But at least my kid, is listening to stuff. She made a playlist of music from the 80s. I was like, how did you even get there? Yeah. And so that's been really cool too, because as I write music and think about audiences and where our music might connect with various audiences, she's been a great resource for me.
Yeah. Well, that's awesome. It's that music could help be kind of a conduit to your daughter and her interests and some commonality there. That's wonderful. As we kind of wrap up the episode and the interview, maybe you could leave us with a piece of parting guidance for our listeners that you've picked up over the course of your various careers and your journey.
This is my message to my fellow entrepreneurs, your listeners. There are going to be a lot of naysayers, and in my case, it can come in the form of our music is not in that sort of dance music, hip hop, EDM mode, which is the most profitable kinds. Those types of music are the most profitable. Right now, we're kind of countercultural to all that. Music is supposed to be for the quote young, and a number of us, me included, are older. There are going to be a lot of naysayers, and my advice is to listen to your own voice. There's a reason why you decided to make that leap as an entrepreneur, and find ways that are uniquely yours to shut out the noise and just stay focused on the dream.
Yeah, that's very true. Is there anything else you'd like to leave with the listeners that I may have missed in the interview?
West Seattle's great.
West Seattle is great.
I love West Seattle. Every time I come here, it puts a smile on my face. It's a jewel of our city. It's probably, my sense of it is, it's one of the most demographically diverse parts of Seattle. and more people should discover it.
Indeed. Yeah. Come visit West Seattle. Well, thank you for your time today, Paula. I really appreciate it. I know you're a busy person. So listeners, make sure to go check out paulaboggsband.net and to find out more about her and her music, and pick some up. I assume it's in iTunes and maybe some
all of that.
Yeah, all
Amazon,
that. Okay.
iTunes, all of
Yep.
the above. Thank you, Christian.
Thank you very much, Paula. I appreciate it. That wraps up this week's episode. Make sure to check out our guest website, pay them a visit, and help spread the word about what they are doing. If you have any questions, know someone who should be a guest on here, or has a great story worth sharing, email me at christianharris@seatown.com. That's sea-town.com. I would also love it if you would go to iTunes and give us a review and a nice 5-star rating. We work hard to bring on great guests and provide exceptional content, and getting a review from you is one way to help the podcast rank well in iTunes so others can find and enjoy the show. You can also find out more about me, how my real estate brokerage is breaking the mold and making a difference in our Seattle communities, and other projects I'm working on by visiting seatown.com, sea-town.com. Thanks for listening. The music for our podcast is courtesy of The Fascination Movement. You can find their albums in the iTunes Store. You can also listen to more episodes and find all our show notes on our website at seatownpodcast.com. This has been a Seatown Media production.